list of bills.
Hopefully the rest are, well,
So now
one might
SB
not be.
209, which is item number 4 on our list. So surface mining, Senator.
You want Mr. Gray to come testify in support of your bill? He offered.
Why?
Okay, go ahead.
Up to him. I'd like to start by accepting the technical amendments from the committee and thanking the staff with this committee, Mr. Jarrett, hello, for your work on this bill. This has been interesting. This isn't an area that you would normally associate me with, but I chair the Natural Resources and Water Committee, and so mining is part of that jurisdiction. And in fact, the concept or many of the provisions of this bill came from the administration who convened a stakeholder process for mining law reforms. I think everyone agrees reforms are needed. How much and when probably is the subject of discussion. But the governor called for a top-to-bottom review of the state mining law. The nickname is SMARA. And because of that strong signal sent from the administration, we have closely followed their good work and included many of these reforms in our bill. So what's the purpose of all this? Mined lands need to be reclaimed when they're no longer being used for their intended purposes so that they can be cleaned up for other viable uses without contaminating water or other kinds of things. And we have problems in California. I want to say that California, we recognize the local control county's responsibility. That doesn't change in this bill other than some oversight on training and things like that for inspectors. We're the only Western state that doesn't control mining by state rules. We allow locals to do this, and we're not trying to change that, but trying to make everything operate more effectively. So let's focus on the major provisions of the bill. For the reclamation plans, the bill creates a new process for the review of reclamation plans, including that the lead agency must provide a complete reclamation plan, not just partial. It also requires the lead agency to respond to comments and either describe how it plans to adopt the comment or explain why not. It also goes on to talk about financial assurances. When you open a large mine, do you have financial assurance to cover any problems that are in place or to pay for the cleanup once your mine is no longer operable? So adequate funds set aside for the cleanup, and that goes into detail in the bill. It makes several changes to inspections. It allows lead agency employees to inspect surface mining operations. Individuals could come from local government, or they could hire someone as a consultant through the private sector. Just requires that there's training in place. It also addresses some provisions of penalties and changes the office of the mine. Your analysis did a very good job articulating all the details in the bill, and let's go on to the witnesses, if you don't mind.
Thank you. So we're going to follow the chair's 3 witnesses, 2 minutes each. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee members. My name is Izzy Martin. I'm the CEO of the Sierra Fund. We're the sponsors of this bill. The Sierra Fund has been working on mining issues now for nearly a decade. We backed into it by trying to work out how to clean up the abandoned legacy gold mines, which are contributing mercury, sediment, and contaminants to the state water system and the federal water system. We learned that when, in 1975, when SMARA was passed, that was supposed to solve this problem. We were not supposed to have any mines opened and then not reclaimed. Unfortunately, in the 40 years since this bill's been signed, we've had many mines open, finish mining, and leave without reclaiming and without having an adequate financial assurance mechanism in place. This bill is a result of the stakeholder process in the governor's office, which I participated in all spring, and it focuses on really the 3 legs of what makes SMARA work: excellent financial assurances, an excellent reclamation plan, and fully trained inspectors that really know what they're looking for and how to make sure that the mine is operating under all of its permits. I was a county supervisor. I'm very much in support of local county supervisors and planning commissioners staying on top of this issue. I would ask your aye vote.
Thank you. Next witness, please.
Mr. Chair and members, Jenna Price on behalf of the California League of Conservation Voters. We are here to register our support of SB 209. From site to site, SMARA's level of enforcement may differ, and that's largely due to the inconsistencies within the application and enforcement, as well as the Department of Conservation's inability to communicate their concerns, as highlighted by the Senator. We feel that SB 209 seeks to address and actually improve three of the fundamental components of SMAR. That's the inspections, the financial assurances, and the reclamation plans. Various information sources show inspections are not adequate, meaning that financial assurances are not updated, further meaning that reclamation plans are inadequate when mining is expanded. Providing a full reclamation plan for review, and one that must be signed by a licensed professional accredited engineer, is an important first step to greater public transparency, and it's one of the many goals that was articulated in the stakeholder process that Izzy mentioned. SB 209 provides qualification for inspectors, training, a process to update financial assurances, and to make sure those financial assurances are adequate for reclamation. We believe that SB 209 plays a vital role in protecting the health of our environment and the people from hazardous mining practices, and we ask that you support.
Thank you. Next witness, please.
Hello, my name is Sandy Jansen, and I hail from Nevada County, California, and particularly from a neighborhood that has just had an open pit gold mine approved by the county supervisors just the last month. We believe and many of us believe that the reclamation plan was woefully inadequate, and so we support the concept of having the state be more visible in the whole approval process at the beginning. We also support the idea of inspectors that our county just doesn't have. We don't have the kind of scientists and whatnot on staff that are qualified to even look at some of the issues that pertain to mining, especially this open pit gold mine, which happens to be in a legacy mining area that had massive amounts of mercury, and it was never ever cleaned up. So we support everything that has been done so far by Izzy and everybody else with SB 209. I come from actually a neighborhood that would be loath to have the state have more oversight on us, but in this case, with mining, it's a big issue. Our next generations are very, very concerned. That's one of the reasons I've come out of hiding. They are worried about what some of these mines are going to be doing because they outlive the people. The mines will outlive the people who approved them, and that's a big deal for the younger generation. Thank you.
Thank you. So other witnesses in support, if you could give your name, your affiliation, and that you support.
Bill Alio, Environmental Working Group, former planner who worked with SMARA, needs an update now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Grinberg, Clean Water Action and Support.
Thank you.
Kurt Lorenz from Nevada County. I represent the San Juan Ridge Taxpayers Association, and we strongly support SB 209.
Thank you.
Deborah Weistar, Nevada County landowner and neighbor within a mile of a proposed mine. Strongly in support of this bill.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Weistar. I'm a neighbor to the proposed San Juan Ridge mine and youth advocate, nonprofit director, and in support of AB 209. Thank you so much.
David Hess. I reside in Ubet, Nevada County, near a proposed open pit gold mine. I ask for your support.
Mark Cavillo, Nevada County resident, net voter, and I ask for your support of SB 209.
Thank you.
Matthew Lewis with Environment California in support of the bill.
I'm Faring Cavillo, and I am in support of 209 and hope you will be too. Thank you.
Kathleen Manueli, Rollins Lake, and I strongly support this bill.
I'm Damon DeCrow from Nevada County. I'm a strong supporter of this bill. Hopefully we can see something positive. Thank you.
Jan Childress, I'm a City of Sacramento resident, and I've had property in Nevada County in the Ubet area since 1981, and I strongly support this bill and hope you will too.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Seeing none, opposition?
Well, I'm Mary Pitto with the Rural County Representatives of California, and with the recent amendments, we are removing our opposition. Together with CSAC, Karen Keene of the California State Association of Counties, we are in support if amended. We are very encouraged that the few remaining issues that we have are going to be worked out, and we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? All right, seeing none, opposition.
Chair members, Adam Harper with the California Construction and Industrial Materials Association. We are in opposition to the bill. We're opposed to SB 209 for the reasons stated in our letter of opposition, which we submitted to the committee. It creates a more confrontational enforcement process, removing due process protections and potentially interfering with the implementation of SB 447. It dramatically increases operator fees as well as other issues. We respectfully can request your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Gray, you have 2 minutes.
Mr. Chair, committee members, I just wanted to support Senator Pavley's bill today. As you all know, you saw my bill earlier in the year, AB 1142, dealing with the same subject area. My first involvement with this issue, of course, was as JLAC chair in the previous session, looking into the fee and the expenditures around the fee. Senator Pavley and I have some disagreement over our respective approaches, although I'm confident there's been good discussions on both of our bills, and I'm hopeful as we move forward into the appropriations process that we, working with the administration, we come to some resolution. But I wanted to support Senator Pavley's bill moving forward out of this committee, as I think it's an important part of those discussions.
Thank you, sir. Others in opposition?
My name is Patricia Nelson, and I'm an independent permitting and compliance consultant, and I am in opposition of this bill because it places high entry fees into any new mining enterprises in California. So many are compliant and want to be compliant, but to have undefined financial tests for new members of industry and increasing the annual reporting fees from $4,000 to $10,000 annually is an unnecessary burden with regard to inspections. The Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration is responsible for inspecting the mines, and to create something at the state level creates another level of redundancy that operators will have to comply with. Thank you. I urge your vote in opposition of this bill.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Hussey. I've been a prospector for 30 years. I'm with the Mother Lode Gold Hounds, and we've been trying to survive for the last hundreds of years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Randy Hurls from Granite Bay. I oppose this bill. If it's not mined here in California, it'll be mined someplace else. And we have been regulated in California enough. In fact, gold dredging has been banned, a 2-year moratorium in 2009, and the state put the moratorium on it, and that was another form of mining that's been wiped out. I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've now had 3 opposition speakers with some details, so the rest of the opposition speakers, please give your name, your affiliation, and that you're opposed, please.
Rick Larson, Solano County. I go out to the gold country every weekend as an individual prospector, and I oppose this bill.
Thank you.
Assemblymember Stone, Terry Thomas, on behalf of the California Council of the American Society of Landscape Architects. I'm sort of a wobbler. Could I have your permission to?
Briefly.
Yes, thank you. The California Council of the American Society of Landscape Architects is obviously composed of all of the professional landscape architects in California, and it's really hard to oppose Senator Pavley's bill, which we don't oppose, but we are concerned because in existing statute there is specific reference to landscape architects being a part of the reclamation inspection and the inspection process, and they have been specifically removed, stricken from this bill. Many of them have very advanced education and training and are perfectly qualified to do this. So. I have had discussions with both the consultant for Senator Pavley as well as the department. We just found out about this late last week, so I apologize for the tardiness on this. We are very hopeful that we can have discussions during the interim and we can work this out so that landscape architects can continue to work in the roles that they have traditionally worked in this area and bring the benefit that they can to this process. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Rick Eddy, Political Director for Western Mining Alliance, also representing American mining rights and miners assembled. We oppose this bill.
To the committee. Mr. Stone.
Well, as a former county supervisor, having been very much involved in mining in my district and especially the reclamation, having gone through your bill in some detail, I very much appreciate the work that you've done, bringing the mining standard a little bit, making it a little bit more modern, addressing some of the issues that are in there. And honestly, I think it will be coming from the framework that we came from, dealing with the issues that we had in Santa Cruz County. I think it would be it's a very helpful step, and I appreciate the work that you've done. And
we should have had you carry the bill.
A motion by Stone, second by Garcia. Mr. Dolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to just say that I also spent many years on the Board of Supervisors dealing with this isn't just about one gold mine in Nevada County. This is about all mines in California, and it is very technical. I'm interested in seeing what amendments you do bring with the rural counties. I'm going to give you an example. In Lassen County, where I was a supervisor for 16 years, it's very difficult to even for the county to use gravel. We use a lot of dirt roads. And, we only resurface those roads sometimes every 20 years. And now we have reduced our gravel pits because it is expensive. And we sometimes then have to truck gravel 200 miles from one end of the county to the other end of the county. And our carbon footprint is huge. And these fees are going to be complicating those issues. We only have an average rainfall of, in some areas of our county, 6 inches. In other parts of our county, about 18 inches. Now, I can see the regulatory need for places where we have a high amount of rainfall and we have a lot of erosion and those type of issues. So I am going to lay off your bill today, expecting to hopefully see maybe some exemptions for those areas where it really doesn't make sense to have this much regulation and also the reporting when the mine might be used once every 10 years. So I know that Ms. Martin has worked closely with my office on mining issues for years. We were county supervisors together, so we understand this issue. It's not about mercury. It's about making our carbon footprint not as broad when we actually have to use those mines. So I will respectfully lay off your bill, and hopefully we can get to some resolutions with the rural counties. Thank you.
Chair's recommendation is aye. Would you like to close?
We'll be happy to meet with the American Society Landscape Architects. Ms. Thomas, come see Mr. Craven if you're listening to this. I think we can solve those problems. Fees were based on actual costs of the plans. We know that. And so, Mr. Dolly, please feel free to continue to work with Ms. Martin, your good friend, and Mr. Craven as well. Open to suggestions, but at the end of the day, we need reclamation plans and financial assurances that after mines are finished, they're useful, and that we can reclaim that property and use it for something else. Because frankly, it'd be a loss of property values for rural or semi-rural counties. Ask for your aye vote.
There's a motion second. Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dowling? Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty? Aye. McCarty, aye. Rendon? Stone? Aye. Stone, aye. Wood? It's got 5 votes.
You have 5 votes. Your bill is out.
Okay. Thank you.
And you have 1 left. 2 more. Just want to remind members of both houses that we have only gotten through 4 bills of the 14 in the first 3 hours of this hearing. So let's see if we can go a little faster.
I will go faster. I speak faster too. I'd like to let you know, but the last bill coming up, very easy. So this is the last more challenging bill. This is SB 248. 471 is the easier one, Mr. Dolly, that you will love to vote for. So, Senate, I keep presenting them until you vote aye, so we'll be here a while. So this bill, Mr. Williams,
I'll second it.
You know
Motion
the
by
subject.
Stone, second by Wood.
You know the subject area, right? Dogger and underground injection well reform requires Dogger to review and update its regulations, data management, reporting requirements. I want to make something very clear. There were proposed regulations that came out recently, and also an agreement between the EPA and how to treat the underground injection well rulemaking process. The amendments taken assure that there will be no duplication. That was the primary rationale in the letter I opposed. So we will be taking the proposed amendments in the committee, but also wanting to assure the committee members that there should be no duplication. We're just making sure that that timeline is sort of put into statute, if it will, and that means that it says we're going to get this done on time. The idea is to just create transparency, and at the bottom line, the reason I'm involved in this, I chair the water committee, so protecting groundwater, which during a drought is 60% of our state's water supply, is incredibly important. So providing oversight, not only for climate change, this really needs your oversight as well, all of us. We know that we've had problems with 2,500 wells that the United States Environmental Protection Agency called to our attention. We are gradually reviewing them now. So this bill will look at also review all the rules and regulations just on a regular 10-year basis. If nothing needs to be reviewed or changed, fine. But I think you step back because it had been years before we had actually done anything about some of these issues that have been percolating, no pun intended. It shuts a loophole that allows the industry to not report some oil and gas activities. Also, you might have noticed at the end of last week, and I think we have copies of it, the California Council on Science Technology from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory released the final volumes of the independent study relating to SB4. That's the fracking legislation. It's well worth a good read. What I'd like to do is work with you, Mr. Chair, on some potential amendments that are very timely in time with this bill and the subject matter of my bill. Between now and appropriations, we'll work with your staff if that is acceptable. And that relates to percolation ponds and how we phase them out and the toxicity of combinations of chemicals. Mostly a disclosure bill and a phasing out, if needed, of some of the percolation ponds. We have 900. Other states don't have them at all. This is only about protecting groundwater. That's the goal, and I look forward to working with Dogger and the industry collectively, another area of oversight. Have some witnesses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Brianna Mordick with the Natural Resources Defense Council. California's UIC program has been mismanaged for decades, resulting in more than 6,000 wells improperly permitted to inject into federally protected drinking water. In the midst of a historic drought, SB 248 is gravely needed to reform the UIC program and protect California's dwindling groundwater resources. While welcome, the reforms that Dogger has announced don't go far enough to protect drinking water. As the Senator said, this bill doesn't try to sidestep or duplicate actions that Dogger is taking, but rather ensures that Dogger follows through on its promises of reform. We also strongly support Senator Pavley's plans to amend this bill to incorporate key recommendations from the recently published statewide scientific study on the environmental impacts of well stimulation. The final well stimulation regulations were finalized a full 6 months before this study was published, and so don't incorporate these key recommendations that the study makes. So we strongly support this bill and ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Andrew Grinberg with Clean Water Action Committee and Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. For the reasons stated by the previous witness, we support this bill, and in addition, see this as an opportunity to go directly after the scientific recommendations of the CCST study. This bill encourages more transparency and better data collection, which were at the core of that study and its recommendations. Additionally, better management of our produced water here in the state to protect groundwater and surface water and drinking water sources. This bill would accomplish that. We ask for your aye vote.
Amber Mace, California Council on Science and Technology. Thank you for your commitment to science informing decision making. To be clear, the California Council on Science and Technology does not take a position on legislation. We were created by the legislature so we could provide independent science advice, and we look forward to providing that as you go through this process. It was a process to develop this report, over 2,000 pages, and it will be a process for you to consider and incorporate it. Our scientists are standing by to help you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support, just your name, organization, and your support.
Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California in support.
Opposition.
Bill Alio, Environmental Working Group. It's the last Dogger Reform Bill left standing. Thank you for your support.
Trudy Schaefer, representing the League of Women Voters of California, also in support.
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club California in support.
Kelly Doe on behalf of California League Conservation Voters in strong support.
Witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman and members, Eloy Garcia for the Western States Petroleum Association, representing major producers in the state. We are here in opposition, and will be brief in light of the your agenda in the hour. We've heard this issue before, repeatedly in this committee, through the budget process, through a number of oversight hearings. The reforms that I think that the administration moved forward in terms of the Division of Oil and Gas, the State Water Resources Control Board, were in fact handled in emergency regulations now being forwarded, but also in the budget, in the trailer bill that you all supported. You all codified the actions in that action plan, the US EPA corrective action plan, including the timetables, including the relationship between the State Water Resource Control Board and the Division of Oil and Gas Department of Conservation. You supported funding to enforce that program. This issue is being worked, is being handled. We need to let it play out. We need some certainty from the Department of Conservation, the Water Resource Control Board. So we look forward to letting those regulations play out. You provided incredible direction and resources to make that happen. We find this bill inconsistent with that process. And just very quickly, I know that there was mention of the CCST report and perhaps some legislation or some direction following from that report. I'll just mention that this was volumes 2 and 3. There was a volume 1. We'd invite you to take a look at volume 1 as well. What is it? Where is it happening? Volume 2, with respect to the recent release report, with regard to chemicals, found no release of hazardous hydraulic fracturing chemicals to surface waters. That's page 35 of the report. With respect to groundwater quality, found no documented instances of hydraulic fracturing or acid simulation directly causing groundwater contamination. That's page 52 of the report. And I could go on and on. So I would just encourage you to take a look at the comprehensive report. Let's not be selective. Let's not pick out lines, verbs, or issues that we think that we want to put in legislation, independent of the entire report, which really found that there are no major issues. You've put in place tremendous amount of reform, and we'd ask you to let that play out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your patience. P. Anthony Thomas, representing the California Independent Petroleum Association. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, Mr. Chairman, industry attempts to bring as many facts and scientific-based background as we possibly can. One thing that I heard in one of the proponents' testimony is that it was a statement of 6,000 wells that were incorrectly permitted. I would challenge those numbers, and I would ask that the chair and this committee challenge those numbers and ask for accurate proof that there were 6,000 wells. With that said, Mr. Chair, 240 calls for a number of requirements by Dogger. Our concerns have to do with what is currently being done that we believe would make some of 248's mandates redundant at best. Section 5 of the bill, 313, as amended, calls for the regulations, the field rules, notices, manuals, and other requirements need not be reviewed at all at all but one, need not be reviewed all at once, but each of them shall be reviewed every 10 years. And DOGR has publicly and privately acknowledged the need to modernize regulations. They also acknowledge the need to create their new regulations. They've also come to the realization that they need a data system. In fact, DOGR is actually required to do so under the compliance schedule for the U.S. EPA. 248 mandates the division to review regulations every 10 years, which is unnecessarily prescriptive in our view and could preempt addressing other major issues that could be happening concurrently. Finally, Section 9, 3213.5 does not distinguish between enhanced oil recovery and waste disposal, and it is unclear, Mr. Chairman and members, what benefit this section will have on industry, the division, or the state. This section could be interpreted as mandating testing and analysis of the same fluid multiple times. For example, if you are flooding a well to increase resource recovery, operators would have to test the water before it is placed into an injection well and would have to repeat the process when the well is produced. And once again, prior to when it is injected back into the formation to dispose of it. We do not see any additional benefits.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Michael Shaw, the California Manufacturers and Technology Association, also in opposition to SB 248.
Okay, further witnesses in opposition, please come up and state your name, organization in opposition. To the committee. Mr. Hadley.
Senator, thank you very much for the bill. There's a lot in the bill that I like. I think that the need for not just for best practices, but for a regular reevaluation of what is going on is necessary in light of all that's been learned about DOGR in the last several years in terms of how it's been acting with federal and state partners. And I am still I'm still working on the relationship between AB 356 and what was in the budget trailer language and what is in this legislation. And I'm not sure if this is a good topic for now or for offline conversation, but I want to try to support this bill. I'm worried about the balance between the improvement of information and making more of it public and recurring use of best practices, but also creating unnecessary burdens on the operators. And so we can talk about this offline and continue, but if there's a simple summary you can give between what happens here and what's in the budget trailer language, that would be helpful to me.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for your attention to this issue. I can tell you've been following it. So I'd be glad to talk to you offline as well. But what we're trying to do is put into statute sort of the timeline agreed to in the budget trailer bill, that inspections start in October of this year and have to be completed by February 2017, and needs to put a timeline and a deadline in, I think, in the statute. Unfortunately, DOGR, and most of their new people, I have to admit, are doing a really good job at trying to grapple with 100 years of poor data collection and everything else. But we're trying to really address the lack of transparency, the inability to perform duties and recommendations on a timely basis. There's a whole history of delayed time period. The audit from the EPA was in 2011. We read about it in 2014, where you can see how much this is costing, frankly, the oil companies who are paying for a per barrel fee with probably 80 new positions between the Department of Conservation and DOGR and the State Water Board. A lot needs to be done. And at the end of the day, we have a lot at risk. That's what keeps me in the game. And so when a respected organization like the California Council on Science and Technology lists some of these concerns on not really looking for contamination on produced water and percolation ponds, and these are unlined, and how it may percolate into the groundwater basins through pathways. We need to do that. We need to make sure we're really, again, providing the oversight and getting Dogger and the State Water Board, who is now a partner with them, which is really a good thing, that they protect our groundwater, and that they're a responsive agency to changing conditions. We don't see that, and it's the legislature's involvement the last few years that's really brought them a little bit kicking and screaming along the way into creating the transparency of where it's not just on fracking, but traditional oil drilling as well, but where we're fracking, what chemicals were being used, how much water were being used. We're missing some reports as we speak. So complicated process, but I actually look forward to having a conversation with you, and maybe you can share some insights.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments from the committee? As chair, I feel like it would be almost embarrassing to this institution if, after Dogger improperly permitted 2,500 wells, several hundred of which are connected to sources that are likely to be usable for either ag or drinking water, that it would be embarrassing for this institution not to take a policy stance that that wasn't rolled up into the budget. So I heartily give this an aye recommendation. Is there a motion? Oh, yes, that's right. There already was a motion. Motion by Stone, second by Williams. Do pass as amended to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dolly? No. Dolly, no. Garcia? Garcia, aye. Hadley?
Not voting.
Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty? Aye. McCarty, aye. Rendon? Stone? Wood? It's got 3 aye votes.
It's 3 aye votes. You'll need 2 more. We'll hold the roll open. And your last bill?